ICQ Podcast Episode 279, BYLARA and Komunica Power HF-PRO-2 Portable Antenna Review. Well, hi, hello and welcome to you fellow amateur radio enthusiasts to our 279th episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported by Andrew Demore and Philip Burke, Mike Zero India Mike Alpha, and of course our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M1RB is joined by Chris Mike Zero Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin Mike Zero Sierra Golf Lima, Dan Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief. This episode's feature is an introduction to BYLARA and a review of the Komunica Power HF-PRO-2 portable antenna. Well, as always, I can't stress anything more that it's our donors that keep us advert free in the podcast show. And this episode, we'd like to thank Andrew Demore, who said he's only recently become interested in the ham radio hobby. He's passed his foundation license and has his intermediate exam roughly around about the time this show is released. Your podcast has helped me understand that there is more to the hobby than just sitting around and calling CQ, and he's kindly also set up an annual donation to help us out and help us making more podcast shows. So thank you, Andrew, and maybe you might be getting one of those new call signs that the guys will be talking about a little later on in the show. Many thanks as well to Phil, Mike Zero India Mike Alpha. He says many thanks for your efforts and he greatly enjoys every podcast show. So Phil, many thanks there for your very kind donation to the show. Guys, don't rest on the laurels, they say, because they say the running costs of the show, and to keep us advert free, we do need people to continue to do set up donations, etc. So you can do your bit by visiting www.icqpodcast.com/donate, where anything you send away is always greatly appreciated. Now, listeners old and new who met Martin, Chris and myself at the RSGB convention roughly about a fortnight ago were probably expecting this episode's feature to be the recording of our roundtable discussion, which included the RSGB chairman Ian Shepherd in relation to the future of amateur radio to appear in the episode. Unfortunately, despite our pre-recording tests, our small team were unable to detect once recording started and wireless audio devices that we don't normally use were picking up interference from other events in the area. Unfortunately, it's a great shame because this discussion was lively and positive, but unfortunately we've been unable to replicate or use that audio we recorded, particularly when you're wearing earbuds like most of you do when you're listening to the show. It really is unaudible and very hard to listen to. Hence, at this time, we're unable to run this planned feature, but we will see what we can salvage from the recording and try and bring that to you maybe at a later date. Well, let's keep positive and let's carry on with our show. Now we're going to be joining Martin, Chris, Martin, Dan and Ed to discuss latest amateur radio news, including a new direction for emergency services networks and new UK call signs. As always, guys, hope you enjoy.
What are you doing Sunday morning on the 18th of November 2018? How about joining the ICQ podcast team and many amateurs from across the southern England at one of the friendliest rallies of the year? I'm talking about the 41st Cats Radio and Electronics Bazaar, run by the Callsign Amateur Radio Society. Doors open at 10. There'll be trade stands there, club stands and small traders. Special interest groups will be there to talk to and find out more what's going on. The car parking's free. The best thing about it though is the admission's only £1.50 and that includes a free cup of tea or coffee. But what I will say is get there early because the sausage rolls are great. If you need any more information, please contact Mr. Andy Bryers, G0KZT, on 0772 986 6600. And we look forward to seeing you there. Well, hi guys, and welcome to the News Roundtable for ICQ Podcast Episode 279. Ranking through them fairly quickly now. This episode, I'm joined by Mr. Chris Howard M0TCH.
Hi Martin, how you doing?
Hi Chris, good to hear you. It's about third day running we've been together, or at least on Skype, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I also got Mr. Martin Rothwell M0SGL.
Hello, ranking through them fairly quickly. It's almost like we do one every 2 weeks. It's crazy.
It is. It is. Do you know what? I ain't got a clue what's happened in the last 6 weeks, so don't wind me up on
that.
it.
Dude, that's just a normal day for you. It's fine.
Yeah.
You just go now, have a lie down. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Martin.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
All right. Thank you. Also, we have Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys.
Hi, good to have you on from the States there. And Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP. Hi, Ed.
Yeah, hello, everybody.
Hi, yeah. And Ed's over in Germany. So, nice international roundtable today. And let's say it was good. And just one little thing, because Martin started the humour stage, but we will crack on. I was told at the RSGB convention that I wasn't allowed to say yes to anything. I wasn't allowed to drink coffee, and I wasn't allowed to go more than 5 feet from an adult, wasn't I, Chris?
Absolutely, Martin. Yes, after previous, when you wander off and start chatting to people, sometimes you come back and say, "Right, I've signed up to do this thing in 2 weeks' time," and that's what I think Colin was trying to avoid. I think on that occasion.
Okay.
And what did we come back with when we went for that little walk, Martin?
Well, I wasn't allowed to go for a
mugs of coffee.
Yeah.
You didn't tell us that Colin had told you that.
Yeah. Oh, well, never mind. Anyway, let's start the first news story. New strategy direction for the Emergency Services Network, ESN, in the UK. Looks interesting. Martin, do you want to go first on this one? Because you probably know more about it than us.
Well, I don't know that I know more about it, but I am worried by it. They talk about using EE as their network, which does worry me because EE claim to be the biggest, but of course all the networks claim to be the biggest, and it depends on what you're looking at, whether you're looking at capacity, number of customers they've got, how many cell towers they've got. They all claim to be the business. I don't know what they're basing this on. They talk about things like this new network will have ground to air, so they can talk presumably to helicopters and things like that. Their eye in the sky sort of thing, the police helicopter. Now, if you tried using a mobile phone on the top of a hill or in a tower block when you can see or your phone can hear more than one cell site, what the hell is going to happen when you put a telephone in a helicopter? Now, okay, I appreciate these are specialist phones. They are probably not going to be your standard out-of-the-box iPhone or Android device. It's going to have a PTT system. But it does worry me how these things are going to work. I mean, there are lots of other solutions you can look at. ICOM have brought a solution out as well that uses a SIM card that connects to all the different networks. I think if you were to talk to them, they may even have reservations about you. If you said to them, hey, we want to do this with your technology, I think they may question doing that over 4G. I get that why they want to do it. I get that they want to have the ability to stream video and all the extra things that it may bring. But it does worry me that they're putting this reliance on a cell network when we all know that UHF, airwave may not be perfect, but it was purpose built. When equally a UHF or a VHF radio would, to some extent, probably be a better solution in many cases.
So I think looking at this story, I think what's driving this is the cost. So they're saying it's going to save £200 million a year once it's fully replaced the airwave network. So I think that's it's not necessarily, I'm guessing it may also give them some additional features and functions, but I think the main priority is trying to drive the cost down.
Is that not a time to renegotiate with Airwave and say, look, hey, we want to save some money?
Well,
what are they going to do with that £200 million? Are we going to get more police officers on the board?
No, I think we're just going to spend less money. But I think
going back in the government's pocket.
I'd imagine so. But I think for me, the key thing they got to do is to absolutely test the hell out of this. They've got to make sure this is tested and piloted and maybe try it out in a few different places and actually just really get some real life. It's okay in theory about these things working. Well, it's actually, maybe in a particular area, maybe a few different areas of the country with different types of services, try it out for real.
Try it alongside your existing service.
Maybe have a backup there, leave the running parallel for a while, but just to sort of get a real, before you start doing a wholesale, I'm sure they will do this. I'm sure these guys know what they're doing. Do that sort of pilot first and get some real feedback from the users and make sure the thing actually works. And if they need to tweak it and fix it, or if it's not appropriate, did you do something else? But I think this is indicative of the way things are going. We've spoken in the past about network radios, and you just mentioned there, Martin, about the ICOM solution, and there are other manufacturers out there which are working on very similar products, which are based on rather than based on traditional RF direct communication or kind of using repeaters. These are using essentially the mobile network, and they're using kind of IP-based communication, so kind of network protocol type communications, and that seems to be where things are heading at the moment. Maybe not so much in amateur radio, although we're seeing some of this network stuff with net radio stuff going on. But certainly in the commercial world, it seems to be that an awful lot of technology is moving. It's happened before with telephones, so we've now got voice over IP. Most companies now use voice over IP rather than a traditional analog system, and I think this is now following suit with radio as well. So
it is the future, isn't it? I mean, I only mentioned ICOM because we saw the demo of it happening at Newark. It's an impressive technology. That it makes a lot. IP technology, cellular technology makes a lot of sense. Say, for example, in London, where you apply for a UHF frequency or a frequency pair in London, good luck. Equally, main city centres, Manchester, somewhere like that, you're almost certainly not going to get one. IP in that sense, via your mobile phone. Fantastic. Emergency services, these are guys that rely on comms. If our radios at work go down, well, it's a pain in the neck, but you deal with it. Emergency services, if your radios go down, it could be a matter of life and death.
Yeah, which is exactly the reason not to use the cell network for emergency communications, because we know the cells get overloaded, even if this traffic is given priority, which is what they're saying, effectively a VPN into it. But if you lose a cell tower through natural disaster or fire, whatever reason, where these guys are actually need the communication even more than at other times, you've just put all your eggs in one basket and somebody's just squashed the eggs.
But the other thing, of course,
is wrong.
It's wrong. Airwave at the moment that they use at the moment runs on, it's not a cell tower, but it still runs on repeater towers and things like that.
Yeah.
Airwave works on the London Underground, which I don't believe that the 4G networks certainly don't.
Actually, this article does say ASN has the potential to enable emergency services to communicate on the London Underground. So that may not be in place today, but it's got the potential to do that, it says in the article.
Question I would ask is, and the only reason I even know a little bit about this is because a friend of mine actually was working for the company that provided a lot of the telco on the London Underground. And he explained to me that the radios themselves, the Tetra handsets, although they will talk to the airwave network and they will talk to the network, and you can be put into groups, into talk groups and things like that, so you can all hear your mates' radios or whatever. He said there was also a setting on them that you could hit and they go back to back. So say if you lose your signal, you can just go hit the back to back button and they will talk to each other and you're not reliant on anything. I wonder if the new 4G solutions will have that ability.
I don't know.
Well, that's what I was sort of going to say. Is like, what kind of backup does this system have? If cell towers go down or whatever, I mean, what's the backup? I don't know.
It's a great question.
And I'm sure it's something that's been asked, but you do worry that we get leaked little bits of information and we can speculate. And of course, we say this, it's all speculation. We don't know this for sure.
Yeah.
We are only going by the news stories that are out there at the moment and commenting on them. But
and this is a little off track, but here in Michigan, they set up an 800 megahertz trunking system for all these emergency responders. And of course, in a real emergency, that got overloaded. And people weren't able to talk to anybody, and there was no backup really. So there was a real problem.
So, for example, could they have these handsets? Could they also, if the network goes down, can they operate simplex? Is there an option to I doubt it if it's based on a cell phone, but is there an option for it to be able to make a direct contact with somebody else without the need for the cell system to be running at the time, the network to be there? So that's when we don't know the answer to that, I suppose, but yeah.
But if they're talking to the cell network, they're talking to the cell network at 2.6 gigs or whatever frequency they use for 4G, I would think it quite unlikely. I mean, that in itself, 2.6 gigs or the microwaves that they use, they don't go that far by comparison to a UHF signal.
I wouldn't have thought so.
But the other thing is, guys, you're talking about the cellular network, and we do that. But I mean, when we use Zello, for argument's sake, in our environment, we not only use the cellular network, we also use Wi-Fi. You can do Wi-Fi. So if these
but it's non-critical comms.
Okay, non-critical, but the Wi-Fi could be the backup. You take over, you have a backdoor into pretty much.
Yes, but when you're out on the street, are you gonna? Where am I at the moment? I've got to look, and I found a coffee house Wi-Fi. Right, hang on, let me just log on and pay for this.
No, but for example, on the underground, I know that I think Virgin Media provided Wi-Fi networks. So I mean that there could be something done with that. If that Martin's absolutely right, there could be. It may be that actually there are other.
But all of these Wi-Fi systems that are available then need to be set up to recognise this is somebody from the fire brigade or the police and shut everybody else off and give them the access.
Well, potentially, yeah. Well,
is everybody going to go through and do all that? I don't think so.
Well, it depends on what it is. If it's a network that's recognised, that's perfectly doable. You can. There are technologies that allow you to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's a private network being run, if it's a public Wi-Fi network run by the council or something, yeah, fine, or by the railway or whoever. But if you're relying on a coffee house, or you just happen to go past somebody's house and they've got the features like a lot of them have now from BT or EE or what we call them, or Vodafone, is that other Vodafone customers can use your Wi-Fi as they go past your house. And if you're going to use that as your backup system, all of those systems have to be updated to recognise and give priority to the emergency traffic. This is a decision being made by accountants, not by people worried about people losing their lives.
It needs to be the techs that are making decisions. The accountants can guide them, but the accountants also need to be told to go and sit down, don't have any more coffee, don't go in without an adult.
Are you getting at me again?
No, I'm just using that as a classic example. Well, we could make these decisions. We could come up with a new comms idea.
Yeah. But in defence, these sort of, especially if it's a nationwide type and it's affecting multiple different agencies, this will be going through civil service, RFPs. This will be going through the full. We're talking about huge amounts of money. This will be going through an awful lot of scrutiny. We're talking about it. Anything that's involving spending public money going through a lot of scrutiny. So this, I would hope the people doing this, pretty certain they'll be fairly experienced in, doing tendering work for, for this sort of solution. So let's hope they get it right.
What happens when they get into sort of the Scottish Highlands or some other areas where the cell network doesn't cover?
I guess that comes down to requirements, doesn't it? Really, that would be set as a requirement.
There has to be a backup. There has to be a dual system.
Yeah.
If you're going to try and save money by going and using the public cell network, if you like, since it's already there. They mentioned earlier that it should be able to connect to any network, should definitely be the case anyway, whether it's Vodafone, EE, what's the telecom, whatever it is, the T-Mobile, or any of the others. It should be able to connect to all of those. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, and ultimately, this will be defined in their requirements. I would imagine they will say we need this level of coverage. And the solution may well be, like you say, to be able to piggyback on it on any of those networks. But yeah.
Well, I think we've certainly thrown a hand grenade in the room on this one, guys, which was a good discussion on that one.
It's probably not a good analogy to use talking about police radios, Martin. But
no, probably not. But I'm never politically correct, so I can't help it. Okay, I'm going to move on. The next block of news stories. I can sum up is, what are Ofcom doing? They've issued new call signs and some strange call signs and put some requests out. Now, some of you around the world will start hearing M7s and you'll start thinking, well, that ain't a valid UK call sign. Well, as of a couple of weeks ago, it did become a valid one, and there are some quite variants on this. So, Ed, do you want to go first on this?
Yeah, well, the M7 example is probably easy to justify because the M6s have come to an end. The way that call signs are issued in the UK is they start off with whatever M number, M0, M6, whatever, for the appropriate classification. The M6 has been the foundation call for the last few years, but they've obviously run out of letters in that sequence. They've now moved on to M7. So that one is a logical move on. The website explains it and lists it as the valid group that's being issued from now on the Ofcom website. But what is funny or strange is the issuance of M5 call signs, both 3-letter and 2-letter, and the suggestion that 2E0 2-letter call signs have been issued. The form on the Ofcom website that you have to fill in to apply for a call sign once you've got your qualifications actually states that you can only ask for a call sign within the range that's currently being allocated, and that's also listed on the Ofcom website. There's nothing about M5, there's nothing about 2-letter call signs. So, people have recently got an M5 3-letter or M5 2-letter call sign. They should have been getting M0 call signs according to the normal sequence. So why are these people suddenly getting call signs that are completely out of band of what's currently being issued? And the 2E0 with 2 letters for the intermediate. I don't know if that's actually happened yet or that's a suggestion somebody's put forward. But again, what are Ofcom doing? It's almost as if they've got somebody new in the office there that doesn't know, and somebody asks for something and they just allocate it. So by a sort of a de facto vanity call sign kind of system happening, but nothing official.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know the M7 call sign was coming along. And then suddenly we got jumped.
So I think that the only issue here is really that we've not been given any notice. Ofcom have done something, but they haven't publicised it beforehand. It's just happened. So I heard my first M7 call sign at the weekend. I think it was M7AAL, which I heard on Saturday it was. And I'm aware this is only because this has only happened the last week or so. So that's obviously an absolutely brand new foundation license holder. So, first thing is congratulations to him for getting his license. But I had sort of seen things on the internet about the M7 call signs, not officially from Ofcom or anybody else, but from social media essentially. So I was kind of aware of it. But I guess the difference here is that Ofcom have not kind of announced it. So it's not, for example, when we teach the foundation license course, and the book that should be produced for training the course talks about the M6 call sign, the M3 call sign for foundation license holders. It doesn't mention about anything about M7, of course. At that point, I guess it wasn't there. So we've not been given that notice, I suppose. That's the only concern I've got. And like I say, the M5 call signs and 2E0 or 2E call signs changing, just things. So I suppose really, how does it affect us? I suppose the only thing it'll affect us with is how do you identify someone as a valid license holder? So if I'd have heard an M7 call sign and not heard that was actually a valid call sign, because it wasn't until a few weeks ago, I'd assume that person was a pirate. Now that I know that it's a real license, it's not a concern. So I think there's just been a lack of communication from Ofcom with regard to the new call signs they're issuing.
But the point is, the website entry where they announce these things, no, they haven't sent you an email personally to say we're bringing out M7 call signs or publicised it as well as they could have done. But the website that you go to look at what the current call sign blocks are says M7. So that one to me is a logical progression from the M6, because the M6 came to ZZZ. Yes, but it would have been nice if they publicised it, I agree. But the other ones, the M5s, are the ones I can't understand where they're coming from.
But how many combinations are there of 3 letters? I'm surprised we've issued that many. The M6s came out in 2008. Have we got through that many already?
There are some they can't issue because of profanities and that sort of thing.
They can't issue Qs, can they? I don't think. Because of the Q code.
Even then, that's still...
it's still 15,000 or so.
Lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a lot. I mean, it's
right.
I'd be surprised we get that many new licenses.
So I've just checked. 26 letters in the alphabet, cubed, 17,576, minus a few noughties that you can't have. So that's quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and
you can have Qs. It might not start with Q, but there are people I know with Qs in their name. But
how do they assign the call sign sequentially? I tell you why. 'Cause I just did a search on QRZ.com. It shows that there's 12 M7 call signs, and they're like random. M7AX.
You can request your name. You can request 3 letters.
So
M7ELE, M7MMC.
So Dan, when you register your call sign, when you first get your license and you go online to generate your call sign, you can either say, please just generate a random one, or I would like this 3 letters, and you can try and see if it's already been allocated, or if it's free or not. If it's free, then they'll give you that call sign. So I think, looking at what I've heard, like I say, the guy I heard at the weekend was M7AAL. I assume they're issued sequentially if you don't ask for a specific call sign.
I'm thinking you heard M7AAX, because that's the only M7AA on QRZ.com.
Well, bearing in mind,
yeah, but it might not be on QRZ. It doesn't get added to QRZ automatically.
Only
like in the States, put himself there.
Oh, okay.
Around
so in the States, the
FCC
FCC
a HF operator.
So do you have a like equivalent to the FCC's ULS database there?
No.
Can you look?
No, you can't?
No.
Not public.
They issue a spreadsheet every so often if you chase them hard enough.
If you put a Freedom of Information request into Ofcom, they're legally obliged to provide you with a list of current call signs.
Issued call signs. That's what you belong to. They'll just say these are the call signs that have been issued. I know that's only done once, but there's no. I know in the US, if you've got a US call sign, there's a ULS feed, which various people take. I know because they come and take that feed and therefore automatically update their database based on the feed from the FCC. But that's not the case in the UK.
I mean, it does scream this whole new thing of the different call signs coming out, short letters and things like that. It does scream that there's a new recruit that hasn't been told the rules yet. That's the obvious thing. But overall, however they're getting issued, wherever they get being issued, their new call signs, they are like gold dust. When I first got my M6, and I was a brand new licensed M6 had just come out, so there weren't M6s around. I was one of, I was probably in the first 50 or 60 that were registered. Everybody wanted to talk to you because you were a new call sign. Now, you go on the air and have a tune, and you hear hundreds of M6s.
Yeah.
So the M7s, you hear one of them go and call CQ and HF. Someone will want to talk to you. It's like calling a special event station.
I think in fairness, the American system's far better. You get one call sign issued to you when whatever license you pass and decide to apply for your license. That's it. You get a call sign. It doesn't change unless you go for a vanity call sign, which both Chris and I did. But that means we don't own our original call sign, so somebody else could have actually picked up my old call sign and Chris's old call sign. How
do you determine the type of your license, or are you just expected to work with?
You look in the online database.
Okay.
If you get somebody's call sign, it's W0ABC. Hello to W0ABC if you're listening. You can go to the FCC database online and have a look about the details. Same applies in Australia. Same applies, I think, in Germany as well. But the German one's also a spreadsheet. Okay, but the Australian setup is actually very similar to the FCC setup, where you can go in and search on call sign, on name, and various other things, and then you'll see what class of license it is. In Australia, you can tell by the formation of the letters in the thing, like you can in the UK one. But if you want to be sure what class it is, you can check online into the actual legal database. Yeah. And in the US, you can do that as well, can't you, Dan?
Yeah.
The question I was going to ask is, obviously, in the UK, we have certain things that you're allowed to do at certain different levels. Now, I appreciate that. I think America do things different. So our foundation license in the UK, you only get 10 watts. I'm pretty sure the equivalent of the foundation in America, you're allowed a hell of a lot more than that. But I think there are restrictions on bands.
Right.
Am I right? Am I right in saying that, Dan?
Yeah, so, you can actually operate 50 with a technician class license. You can operate 1,500 watts on VHF and UHF.
There you go. But then we have this thing. That's crazy power. But then we have this thing of we're not allowed to talk to unlicensed operators. But suddenly, I could be talking to you. I don't know what kind of license you've got, but you may be on a band that you're not entitled to work. I'm talking to you, and technically, are you unlicensed for that band? And then suddenly I've got to go and look it up. Whereas M6, you know immediately it's a foundation calling. Like if someone's 100 miles away and they're giving you 60 over, then you may not be quite in the terms of your license, mate.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. Amateur radio license call sign schemes are just crazy. That's for sure.
Has anybody ever come across, or any of you guys in the UK yet now have a world map with amateur radio call signs shown on it that mention the 2 call signs or the M call signs? As far as I know, they all are still labelled as just G.
I had a Yaesu map that did that, and I'm pretty sure it just said G.
Yeah. I mean, even the ones you pay for and get printed for you. Was it CQ Maps or somebody a few years ago? And I think he's just started up his company again. But anyway, he had something like that, and I sent him a note and said, "Oh yeah, okay. Next time I print them, I'll add them." But he never got around to reprinting the particular maps. So and the problem is, how do you pack all that lot into the space around on the map as well? So yeah, call signs are very confusing, especially when different countries do it in different ways.
Not only that, I've come across a couple of stations now that were using just way out there call signs. I thought, oh man, I'm working a real rare DX station here. One was no. One was 3Z0I. Think about guess where that station's from.
I can tell you exactly where it is, because I was about to mention, actually, there's an app I think we discussed before called Pocket Prefix.
Oh.
And Pocket Prefix, you can just type it in and it tells you. So shall I tell where it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Poland.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm working some rare African something. It's Poland. And I did the same with something else. I forget the call now, but it was Mexico. And it's like, oh, okay.
Good for us to get Mexico, but maybe not for you.
Yeah. No, it's not quite so.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of us getting like Italy or somewhere like that.
Yeah, right.
Aren't there special event stations for France TF rather than F or something as well? Again, same thing. You hear the calls and you think, where the heck's that? And it's the special event call sign for that country. It's completely different. Which is,
it's like the special event station.
It's okay, but it's
we had here 2012L. That confused everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I think unfortunately, guys, the call signs are what they are. I think Ofcom could have done a better job at announcing this. It might have been on their website, but if they'd have said a couple of months ago, "Hey guys, M7s are coming up fairly shortly," then it wouldn't have caught us by surprise. But then we wouldn't have a news story to complain about.
Well, if only there was some kind of like podcast or media outlet that they could just go to, and then they could give the information, and like a group of guys could just discuss it and put the information out. If only that existed.
Nah, that'll never happen.
No.
Never happen.
Look, let's be honest. It's the end of the world. We all know about it now. So you know what? Who cares? It's not the end of the world, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just hope that Ofcom don't take those M5 calls back.
Yeah,
that would be a bit unfair on the people that got them.
I don't think they will.
When they find the student issued them when he shouldn't have done.
No, I don't think they will. They're issued now. Moving on.
In other words, next.
Yeah, I like this one. A US senator highlights ham radio disaster response role. And this would have been ideal for Frank because it's his part of the world of Mississippi. But US Senator Roger Wicker has tweeted about the good work that amateurs have done in Florida after Hurricane Michael. You know a bit more about this probably than most of us, Dan. Over to you first.
Well, I not only is Senator Wicker in Frank's part of the world, I think Frank deserves probably 80 to 90% of the credit for this because he is in regular contact with Senator Wicker. He's got Senator Wicker's ear. So this is a pat on the back to Frank, all the way on this one.
Are we saying Frank's got him on speed dial?
he just might. He just might.
When you say he's got his ear, I'm presuming not just in a box.
No. I guess that's an English or Americanism. I don't know if you say it. But yeah, no, this is, Senator Wicker is, and Senator Wicker played a big part in this recent HOA legislation, antenna HOA legislation.
Okay.
So, his Senator Wicker's name's been mentioned on this podcast before.
Is Senator Wicker, does he happen to be an amateur?
I don't think so.
Does he want a really big area in his garden?
I'll read out what he put on Twitter. He says, amateur radio operators have been assisting with disaster response efforts in Florida after Hurricane Michael. These trained volunteers help transmit critical communications to areas with no electricity, phone or internet service, #ham radio. And he's got a link there to a news story about this activity in Florida. So, thanks for thanks I guess for the appreciation. Not that it was me doing it, but people doing this this service, and it's nice to get, I guess, some recognition and and some publicity about what we do.
And I mean, the practical part of this is when the HOA stuff comes up again, hey, you can at least point at this and say, hey, Senator Wicker's on our side here.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think it's nice getting the story out. This is a positive one. This is a positive one for our hobby, and the guys will work well. Ed, would you want to comment on this one?
I don't think I can add anything to what the other guys have said, actually. So just well done, Senator Wicker. Thank you very much.
Right, so yeah, we're all in agreement that Senator Wicker done a good job. I'm sure Frank could have given us a bit more information, but Frank at the moment is on a road trip, so he's not with us tonight, which is a bit of a shame. Moving on to our last news story. This might get... Oh no, it's not a last one from the end. I might get quite a discussion going. Bouvet Island DXpedition news. Ed sent this one over to me, and I looked at it, and I looked at the website, and I thought, why would anybody want to go there? There's a great graphic on the front web page, but it's wet, it's cold, and it looks horrible. So, Ed, convince me why I should go there.
No, okay, just to be clear, this is the new DXpedition to Bouvet Island, 3Y0I. I think the one that went about 8 months ago was 3Y0A, and they were very unfortunate that they had an engine failure on their ship, and they never actually got onto the island. Invested an awful lot of money and a lot of their time and also risk, because it's not a pleasant place to be. And this new team is actually a team that's based out of Poland, with some other members from other parts of the world as well, but the central members are Poland, and they were already prepared to go before the US-based team had set off, so they delayed. And I think it's actually quite good that we amateurs don't give up on these things, that, when one team fails, not their fault at all, you can have mechanical problems, that another team there is ready to try. Whether the risks involved and the costs involved are warranted, I think we'll discuss that in a couple of minutes, because this is probably going to be, well, the previous one would have been the most expensive DXpedition ever, I believe, at like $750,000 US dollars. This one is a little bit less ambitious in so much as they're not using helicopters to get onto the island. As far as I know, they're going to be taking boats across from the main ship, so it's a bit more rough and ready. And the weather conditions there, it's a sub-Antarctic island, and the expression for it is it's actually the most difficult place in the world to get to, and it's like Mount Everest. Why do you climb it? Well, it's there and we can. And this is for the amateur radio. Why would you go to Bouvet Island? Well, because it's very hard to do, but we want to achieve it. And of course, it's a separate DXCC entity for those collecting DXCC entities. But I think it's more a point of them actually doing it. And it does have a SOTA summit, by the way. And there is plans that perhaps they'll actually activate that SOTA summit on Bouvet Island as well.
That would be pretty cool, doing the SOTA summit. So yeah, so it's got on the website. The website, you said, Martin, is very impressive in terms of it's got a nice graphic, a video graphic of waves, quite angry-looking waves crashing against rocks and things. So it looks like it is a fairly wild place. But like you say, it's got on here the most remote island in the world. So clearly it's a hard place to get to. I don't know if it's actually inhabited. I presume it is. I don't actually know, but it looks like it's that's I guess that's the attraction, like you were saying, Ed. It's difficult to do, so therefore let's do it.
It's not inhabited by people; it's inhabited by animals and birds.
Okay, so it's a real wild place. Okay, so good luck to the guys that are out there. It does look like it's going to be quite tough. I assume they will be very well prepared, I'm sure. And it'd be interesting to see if I can actually work them.
So no coffee on the island then. I'd be out of luck, wouldn't I, mind?
Well, I'll have to take your road, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Well, you're going to go look for the Starbucks, are you? No, that won't be there.
Oh, dear.
Take a flask.
Yeah. So, Dan, have you going to do anything on this? You going to try and work them?
Well, I always try and work them. I'm moderately successful sometimes, but we brought up the idea of, is it worth the money? And it's this one isn't costing $750,000, but the previous one did. Wouldn't that money be better spent on promoting amateur radio amongst youth and other kinds of projects, or everybody can spend their money the way they want, but in the overall scheme of things, I guess the question really would be, is this worth the money?
Well, I think one extension to it would be that you get DXpeditions to rare places, but we never seem to get a lot of publicity about it, and especially when it's difficult places like Bouvet Island, like Antarctica, like Campbell Island, all these places. We should get press. Guys are paying the money to go there anyway. Hey, this is adventurous in the 21st century, and there's not that many of them around, so that could be a good publicity for amateur radio.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
But the other thing is that, yes, as you rightly say, Dan, it's their money. They can do what they want, and if that's what floats their boat, excusing the pun, good on them. But I'm afraid I don't think I'd want to spend that sort of money to go to an uninhabited island. That's not what is in my part of the hobby. What do you think, mine?
I don't know. I've got a lot more to add. I mean, it's certainly not my cup of tea. I mean, you said it was like one of the supposedly the most remote island in the world. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I thought that was Tristan da Cunha. But looking on a map, it sort of seems to be south of there. So
probably similarly distant, I think. I don't know how you measure distance, or not distance, I don't measure that, but remoteness, so to speak.
I think it's sort of halfway between Chile and South Africa and down a bit. So it's almost the Antarctic, but not quite.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. I mean, if Tristan da Cunha is effectively halfway between the two. If you go down from Tristan da Cunha, then that's where you'll find it. It's it's rare DX. It'll be something interesting. And if they're going to go and spend their own money and enjoy it, then great and good luck to them. If you're chasing your DX squares or whatever, great. If I hear them, I might give them a call, but I'm personally not going to be rushing out of my way to call them. But if I hear them, I will certainly answer.
So I think also the benefit is that you're getting to talk to somebody in a part of the world. Still, you're ticking the box, aren't you? For the amateurs back home that work those stations, they can say, I've actually made contact with somebody in this bit of the world that's very hard to make contact with somebody on. That's the benefit. And also the guys that are going out and they get all the adventure and the excitement of actually being there and getting there and all the planning and the rest of it.
Yeah.
Now, I do know, for example, the RSGB do support and sponsor some of these events. So I know the RSGB do sponsor various DXpeditions. I know that the RSGB convention every year, they have a raffle, which I never ever win anything at the raffle, but I always go in for it. Well, actually I didn't this year. And I know the money from that goes to their DXpedition fund. So, I guess you could argue, well, could that money be better used? Possibly. But like I say, I think it's kind of a fun matching thing. I don't think you're just paying for someone to go on a holiday. I think you've got to raise the money yourself, and they would perhaps contribute towards it. So, and they've got certain criteria about, the sort of places they want you to go. So it's not just anywhere. They want people to go somewhere that's on a particularly well-wanted list. That's workable from the UK or workable from Europe. They want, they want to have people that are experienced. So it's not a waste of time. They want people that are motivated and actually, don't just want to go on holiday, but actually do want to operate the station and do it and will actually make it a success. So yeah, that's I guess, but yeah, it could be argued, but perhaps there are better ways to spend that money. I suppose people do go along and I've gone along and put money into the raffle, not because I wanted to particularly sponsor a DXpedition, because I wanted to win a nice new fancy rig from one of the big manufacturers. So that's kind of fair enough. So yeah, that's all I've got to say on it really.
So what about? And this is just me suddenly brain in gear, mouth open moment. What about if these big DXpeditions were to just allocate 6 hours or a day, either 6 hours or a day for argument's sake, and work school stations and youth stations just prior to them doing their work the world, so that if they were working school stations like the International Space Station, that's a great introduction to amateur radio. It's a great publicity stunt for amateur radio. And
I guess it's the same thing of working like the ISS and things like that for the school, isn't it?
Yeah.
But how would you stop? We've all been on HF. We all know how it is. How would you say, I'm only going to talk to schools, unless it was a scheduled...
You'd have to do split frequency, and you'd have to be split on a really random frequency.
Obscure split. Because obviously, with, as soon as you put out that call sign that you're on the islands, the world's going to suddenly want to talk to you, and you're going to be swamped. So, in practice, it might be difficult to do. But I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but with the propagation conditions at the moment, because you're going to schools, you're going to be looking for phone, so sideband rather than CW. It's going to be hard for the kids to understand what's going on, because it's going to be right down the noise signals most likely. So as another in principle, I think the idea is great. It is a parallel to having a contact with the ISS, and yes, it could be arranged on a schedule on split frequencies that only both ends know, and that would be actually quite good. Hey, you could do it with network radio, couldn't you? Ugh.
Behave yourself.
I doubt if they got any cell towers or a Wi-Fi on Bouvet Island, to be fair.
Yeah. Satellite internet.
Yeah.
Possibly, yes. Although it might be quite slow, but absolutely, I suppose, yeah.
Dan, do you want the last word on this one?
I'm going to have to blog about this. That's all I can say. Okay. I got to think about this and come up with some more cogent comments here.
Yeah.
Where do we find your blog, Dan?
Oh, you might find it at kb6nu.com.
Hey,
by the way, we were talking about
kb6nu.com. Got it. Thanks.
Well, doesn't everybody have their blog as their callsign.com?
Somebody. This is off topic, I know, but I've been talking with a guy. Some guy emailed me who's a total newcomer to the hobby, and he had a point. He said, all you guys have your callsigns.com as your website. You should have, if you really wanted to get people into ham radio, you should have something like getting into hamradio.com or getting into amateurradio.com or hamradiofornewcomers.com. Not some jargon that newcomers don't know about. So there's a point to that.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah.
Right, our last news story, and I think this one will cover fairly quickly. The FCC proposes raising the interference protection for Class A AM stations that are in the States. So it looks like, stations are not allowed to interfere with Class A stations. This information is a little bit vague to us, but Dan, you were saying that Class A stations are not supposed to be interfered with by other AM stations, are they?
Right. So I've been, I hate to say this, but I've been sort of reading the FCC proposal while we were talking about the other items as well. And so Class A stations are another term for that here in the U.S. are clear channel stations. And the whole idea is in the evening, certain 50 kilowatt stations who are designated as clear channel stations are not to be interfered with over a long way, thousands of miles. So the whole idea here was that, like here in Detroit, we have WJR. It's a clear channel station, runs 50 kilowatts. So at night, its footprint would be thousands of miles. So people in, Mississippi could hear WJR. And there's a bunch of these stations around the country. And the idea is that smaller stations can be on those frequencies during the day when the ground wave propagation isn't as good and wouldn't reach Mississippi maybe. But at night, if there's a local station in Mississippi, it's supposed to either reduce power or change its antenna pattern or whatever to allow people in Mississippi to receive WJR. And that's the whole crux of this proposal here, is to say there's a number of issues here. One is the concept of the clear channel station still a valid one? Should we do something to protect it? And B, what are the appropriate signal levels that a clear channel station should have in all these different areas? So that's the thrust of this new proposal. And there's a lot of it that's still kind of up in the air, but it's in sort of another indication of how radio broadcasting is changing. Just the fact that we're discussing the relevance of clear channel stations anymore is a move. It's a definite change.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. Mine, you've been involved with broadcasting in the UK. Your thoughts on this?
I don't know. In America, the broadcasting system is very different to ours. Obviously, for obvious reasons, it's a much bigger country. Stations are allowed a hell of a lot more power, in particular on AM. Now we have different patterns and things that broadcasters have to follow at night. I think back to the days of Atlantic 252, they ran 500 kilowatts by day on long wave and about 100 by night. I don't know whether we still have to turn power down on AM stations in the UK. So now I talk into the microphone, it comes out of an aerial somewhere in the country or a set of aerials wherever they may be. But it's nice to see the FCC are recognising that there are interference problems. We don't know enough about what they are doing to protect the interference. Where is this interference? Is it interference from other stations? Are they getting interference from power line transmissions, both these stupid little plug pack things that people put in their houses compared to what the electricity companies are sending over the air? I don't know, but at least they're recognizing it as a problem. Obviously in America, AM is probably used more, or has a bigger audience than AM does perhaps in the UK.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. Ed, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, when we first started to look at this, we were looking at it going, is this something to counteract the increased base noise level caused by plug packs, LED lights, solar panels, and VDSL, etc., etc. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be purely that they're adjusting the levels that are allowed to give the clear channel stations in the US more free airwaves, if you like, compared to other ones that have been allocated the same frequency. So is it still relevant nowadays? Well, that's possibly something better for Dan to answer than me, because this is really a US only situation or ruling.
Yeah. I think Dan gave a very good synopsis of what he thinks the situation is. Chris, are you any thoughts on this one?
To be honest, I have nothing more to add. I was reading this document. I have no idea, to be honest, what it means. So I'm really not qualified to comment on this one. So I'm going to let you guys continue.
Okay. Well, I think it's an interesting one to close up on. Clear channel stations, I would guess, were designed to be clear channel stations in the States so that if you did need to get public service broadcast out to a lot of people, you don't want interference with them. So I'm guessing.
So I always thought that Clear Channel was a broadcasting company, because we have a lot of billboards and stuff here, and on the bottom they have Clear Channel. I thought it was like the group that owns the radio stations.
It is now, but they took their name from the concept of a clear channel AM station.
Okay.
And just to throw in one last idea, if you asked people in the U.S. what's a clear channel station, or do you know about this? The vast majority would say they have no clue, and they wouldn't care one way or the other about this. 99% of the people would not care one iota about this proposal.
That's the biggest problem in the world, partly. I mean, they're saying now that people don't know how to tune a radio in, Dan.
Well, right, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. But
I'll show you.
It's a shame, and things are moving on. Okay, well, that concludes the news stories. So hopefully some of you got some interest out of it. I had a very lively discussion tonight, and I've enjoyed this evening. But before we go, let's just whip round the table quickly. I'll start off with Dan, KB6NU. Dan, what have you been up to in the last 4 weeks?
Yeah. So I acquired an FT991A from a fellow actually who's now an SK, unfortunately. I acquired it from his estate. And my idea was to compare it to the IC7300. And I've actually blogged about this, to say that again. It's kind of interesting comparing the two radios. It's the first time I've ever actually owned a Yaesu transceiver. And the bottom line is I'm not going to be giving up my IC7300.
Okay, I can understand that. Martin, what have you been up to?
I'd say I've not ever used a 991, I don't think, but I'd be interested nevertheless. What have I been up to? I've been playing with D-Star. I've got this little device that I've had for some time. It's called a baby star, a little blue box. I did a feature on it quite some time ago, and it stopped working. It just wouldn't connect to the network. Every time it connected and then disconnected, and I thought it was a fault with the device because I have another device that is capable of connecting to the same hotspots, and that was working, and this one wasn't. Out of pure interest the other day, I plugged it in and it started working, and it's worked better than it ever has, which is a bit weird. Although sitting here now, it's actually disconnected, probably because I'm maxing my internet connection out. So I've been playing a bit with D-Star on that. Had a few Fusion contacts. I'm starting work at silly o'clock in the morning, so I'm leaving work even earlier. So I've been listening to Fusion via XP on the way into work, which is nice. Interesting listening to a couple of people. One guy chatting from New Zealand to another guy in Germany, ironically on the UK chat room. But that was fine. We had a little bit of a chat on there. Had a couple of HF contacts the other day, just tuning around into Austria on 40 meters. So a special event station there. I think that was OE100OE, which was nice to work and have a bit of a play with there, especially as I haven't been on HF in a long time, purely simply because the band conditions have been quite low. What else have I been doing? Met some of the listeners at Newark, the National Hamfest. That was great. I apologise, I don't remember all the names and call signs, but it was great to meet loads of people, and loads of people come up and said hello and wanted selfies and stuff with us, which is still a weird concept to me, but I'm absolutely fine with that. But it was nice to meet some of the audience there. And the other thing I got, of course, was a satellite antenna. And no, I'm not talking about a dish to pick up a dodgy television network. I'm talking about an arrow antenna, 2 meter and 70 sems handheld Yagi. So I'm going to give satellites a go. I'm just going to get the handheld programmed up and wait for the pass. But I'm told IO92 is a good one AO92 is a good one to start with. As apparently that's not massively crowded and quite easily to get into. So that's my current interest on there.
Yeah, I agree with you on the satellite, and I'll talk to you more about it later off thing. Ed, what have you been up to?
Well, actually, antennas part of the things I've been doing the last few weeks as well. I've been trying to sort out two antennas for SOTA operations. One, I wanted a very small one that I can actually manage to get up to some of the summits that are difficult to get to and only have a little amount of space when you actually get there. And another one, which is an absolutely enormous vertical antenna, originally designed for CB and 10 meters, that another SOTA operator in the UK is using very successfully on 20 meters for some of the summits where you can get to a bit more easily. And work on both of those. I've been trying to get that thing resonant on 20 meters, and in the end, I found it most people would go and use an ATU, but of course that's extra weight to carry and extra cost and all the rest of it. I've actually found that there's a calculator online that if you take from analog devices, that if you take your reading with your antenna analyzer, it'll tell you what to put together in the case of inductors and capacitors, or in some cases just the capacitors, to be able to match the impedance of a particular antenna on a particular frequency to 50 ohms so that your rig's happy. So basically do what an ATU does, but for one antenna and one frequency. So I've done that for the Antron that I've got, the A99, and I just need to get the time to get out onto a summit with that, and that's the big one, and get that tested. Another antenna that I will actually be doing a review, and I've already sent it in to Colin, is a new commercial antenna, a loaded whip antenna that's sold as a portable antenna. and that'll be my hopefully my go-to antenna for the small summits just stuck on a tripod. So all SOTA related and all antenna related, and some success, some drawbacks. But I think somebody once said to me, "You never stop working on antennas. There's always something not quite right or something better." But I'm fairly happy at the moment with that. So just need to get out onto a few more SOTA summits before the snow arrives.
Oh, that's good news. That's good news, mate. Chris, I expect you're going to mention HMS Belfast, but what have you been up to?
Well, I mean, that's becoming quite recent, is it now? So we have done a visit there, but I won't go into that one too much because it's kind of the same as what we normally do, isn't it, really? Other stuff, well, as Martin Rothwell mentioned, we've been to Newark, we've been to the RHB convention, which are all great events to go to. I've also been doing some SOTA. So I was actually out on Sunday with Matt Nassau, who went down to Leith Hill and down to Ditchling Beacon there. I didn't manage to. Matt got his contacts. So it's actually quite hard work. I think it may be to do with the current conditions, but it took us a long time to get our 4 contacts. Those two sites each. In fact, I didn't actually get my contacts at Leith Hill. At Ditchling Beacon. I gave up on that because it was starting to get dark and cold, so we abandoned that one. But I think there was an event on. I think there's a German contest on at the weekend. That may not have helped our cause. But, so that was fun. What else have I been doing? When I was up at Newark, I bought a kit, which was a speech compressor for my FD817, which I took out with me actually to those sort of summits at the weekend. So I gave that a try. Not sure it worked that well. I actually built it and tested it, and it seemed to boost the signal a bit. Which is exactly what it's, I guess, supposed to do to boost some of the lower audio levels when you speak. But we'll see how we get on. I'll try that a few more times out in the field. See if it. I think conditions worked great at the weekend, and so maybe that's why I didn't do so well. What else have I been doing? I bought a new network radio. So I know we discussed earlier these devices, or this Zello. This thing runs. Basically, it's an Android device. It's basically a phone, I suppose. But it's in a kind of radio form factor. It's got a PTT bus, and it was. I wasn't going to buy one, but the price was actually pretty good. So this was £58. So I saw a review on YouTube for a chap who's, I think he's an M6. I think it's actually an M3. I think it's a foundation I saw, but he's actually done quite good videos actually on YouTube about various radio, mainly VHF, UHF, and DMR, and those sorts of subjects.
Is that Lewis?
Lewis, that's him. Yeah. I think his YouTube channel is Ringway Manchester. Is his
that's him.
So I think it was quite a good video. And he did a review of this particular. I think it's called an A17, and it's certainly the cheapest network radio that I've seen. I thought, well, I'll give it a go. It's not a huge amount of money to chuck it. I'm probably not going to use it a massive amount, but I thought for £58, I'll give it a try. The only downside to it, and this is what Lewis had said on the video review, was there is no volume control. There's no knob for the volume controls, but you can do that in software. There are apps and things to control the volume, so that's not a major issue. So yeah, got that. That was good, and that's actually not a bad little device. It's fairly well built. Also, a certain Dan Romanchik tweeted about a Morse code website called Morse Camp, which I've been playing with. Actually, quite like actually. So I've been playing with that. It defaults to 30 words. It's basically a Morse tutor website. It repeats words until you get it, basically. So you kind of leave it playing until your brain decodes what the word, and then you kind of hit show, and it tells you what the word was, and you can sort of confirm that's what you heard. I actually think it's quite a nice way of learning Morse. So and it defaults to 30 words a minute. So it defaults to very very fast Morse. But actually, I think that's going to help me learn it. So I've been doing that on my phone recently and at home on my laptop. So I think for me, I'm going to continue with that. I think that's a good find, Dan.
So when can I work you?
I'll let you know. What you're going to say is, when am I going to get on the air? I think is your mantra, isn't it? When it comes to learning Morse. Yes. Yeah, I'll let you know. And just on the Morse subject, Matt Nassau brought up on Monday night. He brought up his Vibroplex key. It's the first time I've actually used one of these bug Morse keys just to sort of play around with it. And so it's kind of a mechanical device. I'm sure Dan knows all about it. It's kind of a mechanical device for sending Morse code. It's kind of semi-automatic, so it kind of sends the dots. sends the dates, but you have to manually send the dials. That's the first time I ever played with one. It was quite interesting. It looks like it's, once you got used to it, it's really quite good. It looks like it takes quite a bit getting used to it, to be fair. Dan, have you worked much with with the bug?
I do have one, but I don't use it that much. They are a trick to get used to.
I can sort of see how before electronic keys came about, it would be a really nice way to operate, to speed things up and to minimise any kind of stress on your wrists, etc. But
Absolutely.
I think modern electronics have taken over, I think.
You know why they're called bugs?
I don't.
Well, if you look on the label for the Vibroplex, you'll see their logo is a cockroach.
Okay.
That's why they call them bugs.
Fair enough. It looks like it's a very, very well engineered and very well designed, and it looks like it has to be kind of set up properly. So it's got some very fine springs on there and weights and balances and things. It looks like it's one of the things you don't want it set up. Don't touch any of that, so otherwise it probably a nightmare to set up again, I guess.
There's a YouTube video produced by Jim Wades, WB8SIW, that really is an excellent tutorial on how to set that up. So if you search for that, find that, and he shows you exactly how to do it.
Cool. Very good. So, Martin, that's it from me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, as I say, you guys have all been very busy. I'm going to shoot through mine very, very quickly. I've been trying to get my shack into operation, and I've rerun the cables now to my VHF aerials, and which is a bit of a pig, but they're out there and connected up. And then I found that the aerials have probably got all corroded up, so they've got to come, and the pole's got to come down again. I've got to look at my 2 meter and 6 meter halo, which is a real pain, but I'll get that done. Been doing a lot of podcasting, as the guy said. We were at the RSGB convention a couple of weeks ago, and thoroughly enjoyed that. A lot of people we met, some very good feedback, and a very enjoyable day, I would suggest, we had at the RSGB convention. Met an old work colleague of mine from about 10 years ago. I'm not going to give his full name, but Elliot, who turned up and passed his foundation and intermediate. And I think the thing that got him into amateur radio is the fact of network radio. He heard about network radio, he listened to the podcast, and decided to give that a go, and then decided, what the heck, I'll do my exams. So he did the foundation intermediate on Saturday at the RSGB, so that was quite good. So pretty much a very, very busy week for all of us, but a couple of weeks for all of us, but nice all the same. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard M0TCH.
Thanks, Martin. Great fun as usual.
No problems. Mr. Martin Rothwell M0SGL.
Always good fun and always fun trying to get you in trouble.
You always get me in trouble. What do you mean?
I do my best.
Yeah. I'd like to thank Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU.
You're certainly welcome.
Thanks, Dan. And Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP. Thanks for joining us, Ed.
No worries. Anytime.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. And 73 all.
73.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BOY. And a reminder that December is YOTA month, and clubs and societies are being requested to make their registration to make this year's YOTA event a success. It's a great opportunity to create a demonstration in a school, a local club, a scouting group, a gathering of friends, or just some way of promoting the hobby out and about. Licensed and unlicensed youth will be making QSOs, so be aware that some of the people you're making contacts with will be making their first contact on the air, and it'd be great to make sure that there is a wonderful experience for all people taking involved. There are special YOTA Suffolk special stations which will be springing up throughout November, so a great opportunity to get some new call signs into your logbooks, so they'll be looking out throughout the whole month of December. Most importantly, if you want to get involved, we've got links on the ICQpodcast.com website. for information on where you can sign up to take, your YOTA event a success. Our next news story is coming up soon. We have Remembrance Day on the 11th of November. And in South Africa, the special event station, Zulu Sierra 100 Whiskey Whiskey 1, will be active throughout the month of November in remembrance of the South Africans who were involved in the First World War, and also they'll be thinking of their colleagues who were sunk on the SS Mendi and also fell in the Battle of Delvin Wood and the Battle of Square Hill. And this year obviously is the centenary as well of the end of the First World War, so hence the market of the special event station. For Apple iPhone users and iPad users, an interesting piece of software is available. iWSPR is a product developed by Federico, India Whiskey 2, Whiskey Victor India. It's a Whisper implementation for iPads and iPhones, and it allows you to transmit and see whisper signals with just your iOS device and a simple audio cable connected to your radio. It's great for checking antenna during SOTA operation, field day, or making adjustments to your home antenna system. So we popped a link for this on the ICQpodcast.com website for instructions where you can get hold of this if you're an Apple iPhone user. Well, now we head over to our features episode, which is our double features episode. It's our review of the Komunica Power HF-PRO-2 portable antenna, and also an introduction to the very interesting infectious ladies of BYLARA. I hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
This is a small supplement to my piece about portable antennas from a few weeks ago. In that piece I mentioned that a lightweight and compact antenna solution is needed for summits with limited space, a lot of visitors, or with difficult access when scrambling or even climbing may be needed. I touched on 3 commercial antennas that I wasn't totally happy with. One was a wide-banded mobile antenna which was okay on 40 metres, but only gave basic operation on other bands. I also had one that was designed to be put straight on the antenna connector of an FT817ND or similar transceiver with a slider to tune it. The third was an antenna with a loading coil with sockets and a lead with 2 banana plugs on it to short out the unwanted parts of the coil for the bands being used. That one I could not get to work on any of the bands with the settings given in the documentation. While at Friedrichshafen in 2017, the ICQ team saw a new company called Komunica Power, displaying antennas with their German stockist Funktechnik Bielefeld. When I talked with the CEO of Komunica Power, she told me her Spanish company had been sourcing, supplying and supporting antennas and accessories to the commercial radio telecommunications industry for several years, and she was now looking to expand into the amateur radio market, as a lot of the products such as antennas, microphones and power supply units overlap both markets. Well, here we are, 18 months later, and Komunica now has a section specifically for amateur radio products in their catalogue. The latest product, which was announced in September at the large IBA Radio Hamfest in Spain, is a HF portable vertical antenna, intended for use in static mobile or portable setups. At first, with its slider on the loading coil, it looks similar to the one I have for the direct rig connection, but this antenna is far longer at 2.5 metres high and is of a more robust construction with a PL259 base, which is intended to plug into either magnetic or boot lip mount. It's not intended for use while moving. In my case, I have a modified photo tripod with an SO239 socket and 4 radial wires on which I would mount this while working portable. After receiving the antenna, I tested it simply using my antenna analyzer, firstly on a magnetic mount placed in the centre of my car's metal roof, and then on my lightweight tripod. The readings that I found for each of the bands corresponded with those on the chart in the instructions, while I had the antenna on the magnetic mount on the car roof. The adjustment scale settings were different when using the tripod, which was to be expected. More or longer radials may get the settings nearer to the on-car settings. For now, I have 2 charts. Testing with an analyzer is fine, but a dummy load looks great on an analyzer, so what about a real test? Well, on its first outing to a SOTA summit on the 20th of October, it bagged good contacts both ways to Austria, Russia and Spain, so the antenna performs well. It also packs down well with my tripod to make a practical antenna for those difficult summits. The antenna is called the Komunica HF-PRO-2, and if you look at its details, you'll see it's the same antenna that Diamond sells as their RHM-7350. So why not buy the Diamond? Having the distributor and support based in Europe rather than China, Japan or the USA is an advantage for European hams. Komunica is attending more and more European hamfests to hear what the amateurs want, and best of all, their prices often undercut the well-known antenna and accessory distributors. ICQ Podcast is trying to get an interview with the CEO of Komunica Power to hear more of the background of this Spain-based European company and how the amateur radio market became interesting to them. Check out icqpodcast.com for a link to the Komunica Power website. 73 for now, this is Ed, DD5LP.
Well, I've managed to find somewhere to sit down with three lovely ladies that have made me really welcome at the show. They have, and I'm going to ask you all to give your name and your call sign first, and then we'll go on to explaining what you're here for. So I'm going to go left to right, so...
Carol, 2E1, Romeo Bravo Hotel.
That's great, Carol, and it's good to have you with us.
I'm Judith, Golf 4, India, Alpha, Quebec.
G4, you were licensed long before me.
A little while, perhaps.
Yeah,
it's been a while, 1979.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, and that was about the year I should have done it, and I became an M1 so, later around 2000. And the lovely lady sitting next to me?
Jenny, Mike 0, Hotel Zulu Tango.
And fine Jenny. And Jenny came and found me this morning and said, I'm sure you need to come and talk to us. We're BYLARAs, and come on, tell our listeners that may have not have understood you here what it's all about.
Well, we are the British Young Ladies Amateur Radio Association, so we're here to promote ladies on the air, encourage good operating technique, and encourage ladies to actually come onto the air. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's good, and in fairness, our hobby is a short of a lot of ladies, and seeing as that statistically 51% of the population are ladies, I'm surprised there are not more in the hobby.
Well, that's very true. But we try to encourage where we can. A lot of ladies come in under duress, I think, because their husbands are interested in the hobby, and they tag along, and we try to give them a little bit of friendship and encouragement so that they feel that they belong.
That's really, really good. And you've been going nearly 40 years. You're coming up for your 40th year now?
That's right. 29th of April, 1979, Drayton Manor Park. We all met around a chorus cup of tea in the cafe and decided to start the group going. And we are celebrating 40 years now. We're going to have a big celebration at Blackpool, April 2019, and are encouraging as many ladies as possible to come and join us there.
Well, that's good. So, Carol, how long have you been involved with BYLARs?
10 years, possibly. 10 years. I came into it because my husband was an operator, and he wouldn't let me talk on the radio unless I passed my exams. So I passed my exam, and I started on that. And I went to a radio event one day, and I got approached by a lady called Nikki, who said, "Why don't you put in for chairman?" I said, "You're joking." She said, "No, I'm not joking." So I thought, fine, I'll do it. And someone else put in as well, but unfortunately she had a better offer somewhere else. So guess what? I got lumbered.
Oh, yeah, really, somebody else got a better offer. That can't be right, can it?
For her, that was. But no, I don't regret making that decision at all. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've enjoyed meeting all the ladies and then trying to encourage more onto the radio than we have at the moment. There is an awful lot of lady operators out there that don't operate because they're just taking it on to please their husbands. They should operate. It's fun, and we want them to know it's fun. Just come along and try it. You've got your license. Why not use it?
Yeah, I agree with you that in many instances, sometimes ladies are press ganged into it. And in fairness, I've seen this happen. And I remember one couple, and unfortunately they're both silent keys now, but the husband was a full licensee when we had the B licenses, and he badgered his wife into doing it, and eventually his wife became an A licensee. And And another gentleman that I knew quite well was an M3. I think he's still an M3. And his wife became a 2E0, and he really got the hump over that because she got higher than him. And unfortunately, the lady never went to full licence, which was a shame. Yeah. But you know, it's fair. So Jenny, you look as though you have fun on this because you've been smiling all day.
I try and smile in all adversities, even when it's the raining cats and dogs, like it did at Fraz 3-4 weeks ago. We was there under a fishing tent, raining cats and dogs, the gazebo and the wind was blowing, and yet we were smiling like anything. My husband and I took our novice back in the year 2000. Our tutor was Steve Hartley, and I failed my novice first time around. Steve couldn't work out where I'd failed, so he plunked me straight in for it again, and I passed a month later. My husband met Carol at the Yeovil QRP before, like, I used to work on Sundays, I couldn't get down. So he met Carol before I did. And of course, as soon as I had a free Sunday, he took me down to QRP the following year, I think it was. And he introduced us, and I've never looked back. A lady who isn't here today, she also played a big part in me becoming a member of BYLARA. That's G7RBI, Hazel. She played a big part in me joining BYLARA. I used to be forever asking the then holder of the Callsign, Sheila G3HCQ, that if I could use the Callsign. She said yes every time. In the end, she got fed up with me asking. She gave up and handed it back to Jackie. Her picture's there on the board in the bottom corner over there. She's now silent key, and Jackie offered it to me. That, and I'm the holder of the call sign, M0BYL.
Well, that sounds great. And you're obviously enjoying things. Do you do special events? I think you mentioned you did something with doves a while ago, and I was listening, yes, even if I didn't get it right.
Yes. We did a thing with doves, using the world and the dove's emblem as a sort of a logo to explain what we were trying to do. YL groups around the world organise conventions, and they take it in turns. And the ladies that did it before us last time were the Icelandic ladies. They suggested that we might like to host a YL convention in our country. So we did that. We got together and we somehow managed to organise it. We tied it in with the RSGB convention so that there were already other radio-related things happening around them. So we took them to Bletchley and we went to Woburn Abbey, and we had a marvellous time. They flew in from literally all around the world, from the States, from all around Europe and from Australia, and everybody had a wonderful time. We stopped at the Novotel Hotel. We were given the top floor to have conferences, so everybody listened to what everybody else was doing and what was happening in their country, and it was a wonderful opportunity to reinforce those friendships around the world, and for YLs to show that there are other YLs, there are other ladies that go on the air, so that you don't feel so isolated. So we felt it was a really successful event. We made a banner of all the countries that had attended. Not putting this very well. Each square was in the colours of their country's flag, with their name and their call sign on. So there was a permanent reminder of who had been and which countries were represented. So we keep that, and that's all there to share with others.
That quilt is halfway being quilted. It's me who had the idea. I suggested it to Carol, she liked the idea. I suggested it to Judith, she loved the idea. Hence it became, and that, as Judith just explained, it's halfway through, it's almost done. And I thought it'd be a nice idea for it to be presented to the chairman the chair lady who took on a lot of the work. by the side of the the first UK YL, who's Barbara Dunn, G6YL, and she's not that. Outside her equipment is in the RSGB. I thought that would be a perfect fitting to be done. So it's a case of watch this space for the finishing off of the quilt.
Well, that sounds great. Carol, how do you keep these two in control, eh?
With great difficulty. Especially that one over there. No, they are very enthusiastic. Judith has just been made president of the club, which she's the first member and still with the club, so she's deserved that honour. Jenny, well, Jenny's Jenny. There's not much more you can say about that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, but you're all lovely ladies. Listen, I'm going to wind up now. I'm going to ask Judith to give us the website address. And ladies, please, when you have something to tell, please come and talk to us, because we'll run some information for you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Yes, it's BYLARA.org.uk is the website address. And we do have contact with the national magazines as well, so we make sure that everybody's advised of what we're doing in the future. But thank you very much for coming to see us. We very much appreciate it. And I'm sure that there are others who would like to speak to you as well here this morning. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, ladies, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, thank you there to Ed Durrant, DD5 Lima Papa, and to the ladies of BYLARA for this episode 279's feature. We, of course, would also like to thank Andrew Damore and Philip Berg, Mike Zero India Mike Alpha, for their very kind donations to the ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast. As always, guys, if you like your show advert free, please continue to support us and help us pay our way of our running costs by visiting www.icqpodcast.com/donate, where anything you can send our way is always greatly appreciated. Just in case you're a little bit bored over the next fortnight before your next show, best thing to do is to sign up to the newsletter on the website for the latest amateur radio news over the next fortnight, and also check out the YouTube videos from Hamfest, which are now available on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/ICQ podcast and you'll be able to see all the videos we've made there in the past. I'd also like to thank Chris, Mike Zero Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin, Mike Zero Sierra Golf Lima, Dan, Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, and Ed, DD5 Lima Papa, for joining Martin on the News Roundtable. Thank you very much, guys, as always, for your contributions. So that just about wraps up the show. As I say, as it's me now wrapping up the show, I'm going to go make my Mrs. B a cup of tea, and I know she'll definitely like a chocolate biscuit. Guys, we'll do it all again in a fortnight's time. Look after yourself, 73s.